Now, there's some other functionality that's built into the program. You can also right-click on any particular grouping, and this will bring up a pull-down menu. So I'll go ahead now and right-click on asterisks. And this pull-down menu gives me a number of different options. One is to go to the next level of this family. Essentially, this is the same thing as simply clicking on that particular grouping. So the next item is highlight this family in the analysis. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we left-click on highlight this family in the analysis. When I do so, it highlights all the members of this particular grouping in my repertorization. I'll go ahead now and hit the backspace key on my keyboard, and this again will bring me back to the last graph which I looked at. Again, I'll bring my mouse over to where it says asterisks, I'll right-click, and the next item down is limit the analysis to this particular family. Now we've seen this function before, so I won't review it again. We can also go to this family in the repertory. If I click on Go to this family in the repertory, it takes me to the family repertory in the radar program, and it shows me the asterisks and all of the various sub-members of the asterisks. From here as well, I can go directly back to the last graph by hitting the backspace key on my keyboard. Let's go ahead and right-click on asterisks again. The next item down says select more than one family. Now I can select more than one family by either clicking on this particular menu item or alternately by holding down the Control key on my keyboard and clicking with my mouse. This allows you to limit your analysis or highlight your analysis to more than one particular grouping. I may decide, for example, that I would like to limit my analysis to the asterisks and the rosids. So what I would do is I would click on select more than one family, and when I do this, I notice that a little box forms around the grouping called asterisks, indicating that this grouping has now been selected. Let's go ahead and use the mouse way of selecting a particular grouping. I hold the Control key down on my keyboard, and while I'm holding down the Control key, I bring my mouse over to the rosids, and I click, and I have now also selected the rosids. I have now selected both the asterisks and the rosids. I'm now in a position to limit or highlight my analysis to both of these particular groupings. I bring my mouse over to either of the selected items, right-click, and now I can see that, first of all, I can deselect this particular family if I wish, leave the asterisk still selected. I can deselect all of the families that have been selected. I can highlight the selected families in the analysis. In other words, highlight each of the members of these groupings in my repertorization. Or I could limit my analysis to just the members of these two particular groupings. Let's go ahead and try that now. I click on Limit Analysis to Selected Families, and a little window appears, which tells me you have chosen the following families to limit the analysis to. And it tells me that I've done this with two groupings. One is the asterisks, and one is the rosids. And then it asks me a question. Do you want to limit your analysis to all the remedies of those families, or only to the common remedies? Now, the asteroid grouping and the rosid grouping are mutually exclusive. There are no asterisks which are rosids, and no rosids which are asterisks. So if I select only the common, I will get 0 remedies. The same thing would happen, for example, if I selected arachnids or arania, spiders, and ophidia or snakes. There are no spiders which are snakes, and no snakes which are spiders. So when you select two groupings which do not contain common members, you must select all the remedies, and then you will limit your analysis to all of the asterisks and all of the rosids, or, like the example I gave before, all of the spiders and all of the snakes. So in this particular situation, we need to select all the remedies. We take our mouse, we click on all the remedies, and we have now limited our repertorization to the members of the asterid grouping and the members of the rosid grouping. Another example of when you might want to choose only the common remedies is with the periodic table. You may decide, for example, that your patient needs a remedy in stage 15 of the periodic table and in the silver series or argentum series. And you want to only look at the remedies that are common between those two particular groupings. Again, in that type of situation, you would choose only the common. Let's go ahead now and click on the backspace key to go back to that last viewed graph. And now let's go to the kingdoms button at the very top to go to the main group level. Let's quickly look at the fungi. I click here, and again you can see all of the various subcategories of the fungi. Some are more well represented than others. For example, the Basidiomycota, where we have remedies like agaricus and bovista and the well-known fungi. If I click on that particular grouping, it's going to limit my repertorization to just the members of that particular taxonomical family. I click, and now I can see that my repertorization has been limited to the members of that grouping. If I hit the backspace key again, it brings me back to my fungi graph. I can see that there are many fungi subgroupings which have no members listed in our repertory or materia medica, but perhaps these would be potentially useful remedies in the future practice of homeopathy. And perhaps I'd like to look at these various groupings and determine which of the members of these groupings might be the best to prove in practice. So I could go, for example, and click on this particular member, and again, it'll bring me to Wikipedia and give me information about that particular grouping. I'll Alt-Tab to go back to my radar program, go up and click on the kingdom level, and again, it brings me back to the main grouping.